The screaming started before my coffee even cooled. I was halfway through my first sip when a woman in a sparkly gown sprinted across my backyard, clutching a bouquet and shouting, "Don't get mud on the train." Behind her, a young couple struck dramatic poses under my oak tree while a photographer barked orders like he was shooting for a fashion magazine. It would have been bizarre if I hadn't already endured enough of Linda's HOA antics to know exactly who orchestrated this Union of Whitehead wedding photo shoot in my yard. The kicker? I wasn't even shocked anymore, just deeply, caffeinatedly annoyed. I stood on my porch in slippers and a hoodie, blinking at the chaos. A groomsman leaned against my antique wheelbarrow like it was a rented prop. Another woman teetered dangerously close to my koi pond, adjusting her heels as if she owned the place. It wasn't until someone started dragging a wooden bench across my rose patch that I set my mug down and marched toward the action. And there she was, Linda, clipboard in hand, headset on like she was directing a Broadway show, strolling through my property as if it were hers. "Oh, good, you're up," she chirped, like we were old pals, completely unfazed by the strangers trampling my flower beds. "I told them you wouldn't mind. Your place is just so scenic. We needed a spot for photos before the ceremony. You weren't using the space anyway." I stared, mouth open, trying to process the audacity dripping from her words. She flashed a condescending smile and kept going. "It's for a wedding, you understand, right? Important memories. The light in your yard is DVYNE at this hour Pinterest-worthy." She waved at the photographer, then turned back to me. "Could you maybe keep your dogs inside a bit longer? They were barking earlier, and we don't want them scaring the guests." I blinked, wondering if this was real or a caffeine-deprived hallucination. My French bulldog and German shepherd watched from the side yard, tails wagging. My property, my dogs, my flowers, and Linda had turned it into her personal wedding venue without so much as a heads-up. "No," I said simply, stepping forward and pointing to the back gate. "This isn't a park, Linda. This is my home. Get off my land." Her smile faltered but bounced back fast. "Oh, don't be like that. Everyone's already here. It's just for a bit." I told them it was fine. "We're part of the same community, and this," she gestured around, "helps with neighborhood charm. Boosts property values." "I don't care if it boosts moon landings," I replied. "This is private property. You didn't ask. You don't have permission. You and your bridal invasion need to leave." Behind her, a man in suspenders tried to adjust a tripod on my stone path and knocked over a potted plant. Linda clucked her tongue, more annoyed by the plant than the trespassing. "Look, we're already running late. Let's not make a big deal." I crossed my arms, pulse rising. "Oh, we're past big deal, Linda." Then she made the fatal mistake of rolling her eyes. "Please don't be difficult. This is about love and community. Can't you just be a good neighbor for once?" I laughed at a short, sharp sound. A good neighbor doesn't let 20 strangers stomp through someone else's yard. Linda huffed, her patience unraveling. "Don't you dare let those dogs out. If one of them ruins a dress." I didn't say a word. I turned toward the gate and gave a low whistle. The dogs perked up, tails wagging faster. Linda's eyes widened. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "You're right," I said with a cold smile. "I wouldn't let them out on strangers, that'd be rude. But guess what? They live here, and I'm about to open the gate so they can enjoy their backyard. If you don't like that, maybe you shouldn't have brought an entire photo shoot crew to someone else's home." The dogs trotted over, sensing the shift. Linda shrieked at the photographer to wrap it up. Bridesmaids scattered like pigeons, heels clicking against flagstone. The photographer, a tall guy with a man bun and zero boundaries, tried to snag one last shot before my shepherd gave him a friendly but wet sniff. He yelped, dropped his camera lens into the pond, and stepped back into the mud. "Good girl," I murmured, tossing my shepherd a treat as chaos unfolded. Linda was livid. "You'll regret this, I swear. I'll have the HOA fine you so hard." I raised a hand. "Linda, you're not the law. You don't own my property. If you step foot on it again without permission, I'll call the police." She looked like she wanted to snap back, but her eyes flicked to the bulldog sniffing the guest bags. She decided not to push her luck. With one last glare, she stormed out, leading the bedraggled wedding party in retreat. The photographer mumbled about bad vibes and limped after her. I locked the gate, looked at my proud, happy dogs, and said, "Good job, security team. Now let's refill that coffee." It wasn't Linda's first overstep, But this was nuclear-level entitlement. She didn't just think the HOA gave her authority over fences and lawns, she thought it gave her ownership of anything she pointed to. Something told me she wasn't done. But neither was I. The next morning started calm. Sun filtered through the trees, my dogs lazed on the porch, and the air smelled of grass and coffee. But peace shattered when I found a letter taped to my door, printed on HOA letterhead with an official-looking emblem. It was pure passive aggression, claiming my uncontrolled animals caused emotional distress to residents and VY-siders. I was under temporary pet conduct review pending a hearing. It suggested my yard might no longer be suitable for free animal roaming due to multiple community incidents. Multiple? They meant one afternoon of justified barking. I had footage proving my dog's only crime was scaring a camera lens in someone's ego. I wasn't surprised Linda weaponized the HOA. This was her playbook. The neighborhood newsletter had started slipping in jabs about pet safety and public comfort aimed at me, though my backyard wasn't public and her guests were trespassers. I wasn't letting this slide. I poured another coffee, pulled up the footage, and compiled a clip. The group entering Union v. Ted, the photographer barking orders, Linda Warv-wying people onto my deck, and the dogs jogging in, sparking chaos. I edited it into a 5-minute compilation, saved it to a flash drive, and prepared for the HOA meeting. Later, I caught Linda near my property line with 2 HOA members, pointing at my new privacy fence and shaking her head. They didn't see me, so I watched as she gestured dramatically, saying, "Obstruction, violating aesthetic standards, we'll make him take it down." One member looked hesitant, but Linda's voice grew louder, like a queen issuing orders. I stepped out as she pointed at my oak tree, muttering about a community bench. I called out, startling them. Linda turned with fake surprise. "Oh, we're discussing beautification ideas for the neighborhood," she said, plastering on a smile. "You'll be happy to know we're working on a proposal to benefit everyone. If you touch my land without permission," I said calmly, "I'll take this to court. Your beautification violates privacy and property rights." Linda's face twitched. "You don't need to be aggressive. We're keeping things harmonious. Your yard's VY-sible from the pathead affects the neighborhood atmosphere." "It's my backyard," I said flatly. "The atmosphere back here is mine to control, not yours to decorate." She opened her mouth but stopped. With a sniff, she turned to her group. "Let's go. We have more CIVY-list neighbors to VY-sit." I spent the evening securing my gate, checking camera angles, and printing "no trespassing" signs. But I knew this wasn't over. Linda didn't like losing. Every pushback was a challenge to her ego. 2 days later, I came home to another group posing near my wheelbarrow, now deeper in my garden. Linda wasn't there, but her fingerprints were. The couple stood stiffly as a new photographer snapped pictures. I approached and asked if they had permission. They mumbled about community photos and being told it was fine. I pulled out my phone. "Who told you that?" "A lady, short hair, kinda angry looking." "Kendra, I think." "Linda," I corrected. "She doesn't own this land." "I do." They apologized and left, the photographer lowering his camera. She said the HOA approved it. "The HOA can't approve private land use," I said. "You're trespassing." I filed a formal HOA complaint, attaching screenshots, footage, and trespass notices. It wouldn't stop Linda, but it gave me ammunition for the meeting. That night, I reviewed every clip, my dogs beside me, heads tilted like they were watching too. "If this keeps up," I said, "you might crash another photo shoot." The HOA meeting arrived like a storm cloud. My table was stacked with screenshots, footage stills, and a timeline of every incident. Linda had underestimated me, assuming I'd roll over like others she'd steamrolled. I arrived early at the clubhouse, which smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Linda was there, surrounded by her loyal enablers, flashing a sugary smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her jaw twitched, knew I had something. The meeting droned through budget updates until resident pet concerns came up. Linda leapt up, striding to the front like she expected applause. She described aggressive animals, an uncooperative homeowner, and deliberate interference, using words like hostile and disruptive. She claimed my dogs caused a twisted ankle, omitting that it happened during a trespassing panic. I waited, letting her dig deeper. When she finished, I raised my hand. "I'd like to respond." I plugged in my flash drive and played the Vidiono narration, just raw footage. Linda directing people onto my lawn, the group hopping my fence, knocking over pots, posing by my shed. Her voice, "Don't worry, he's fine with it." Then the dogs, tails wagging as guests scattered. The room fell silent, stunned, uncomfortable silence. A board member asked Linda if she had permission. She fumbled, muttering about verbal community consensus. I handed out county property surveys, cease and desist letters, HOA bylaws, and a log of her trespasses. When I finished, Linda looked ready to explode, fingers gripping her notes. Another board member asked if others had issues. Hands went up. Neighbors admitted Linda used their driveways or yards without asking. One mentioned a party tent blocking their entrance, another her rerouting Halloween traffic through their garden. The board dropped her complaints, agreed to reevaluate her role, and Linda's illusion of control cracked. The next evening, my camera caught her outside my fence at 10:03 p.m., flashlight in hand, talking on her phone, pointing at my trees. Her body language screamed fury. I leaned back, looked at my dogs, and said, "Round four's coming, huh?" The week after was too quiet. Linda went silent, like a volcano before erupting. Strangers lingered near my fence, one flying a drone over my yard. I confronted him about permits, he stammered and left. A no trespassing sign was ripped down. Then came the HOA's Community Visual Enhancement Program, targeting my overly tall fence and obstructive trees, retaliation dressed in bureaucracy. Inspectors arrived. I refused entry without a warrant. They left deflated. The next Saturday, another wedding party appeared, photographing my yard as a backdrop from HOA land. Linda stood behind the photographer, directing. I approached. "What are you doing?" "It's fine," she said smugly. "They're not on your lawn, just using the VYEW. You can't own the VYEW." I walked inside, opened the gate, and let my dogs roam. They sprinted out, barking joyfully, not aggressively. Guests panicked, bridesmaids screamed, the groomsmen tripped, the photographer shouted. Linda yelled about endangering guests while stumbling into a rose bush. My bulldog peed near the fence. I sipped lemonade, watching the group scatter. Linda left last, hair tangled, heels muddy, glaring. The final blow came at an emergency HOA meeting for community cohesion. I arrived with my dogs, leashed and charming the crowd. Linda strode in with a binder, but her usual allies were absent. She ranted about safety, decorum, and my dogs, holding up a photo of my oak tree and a color-coded barking log. I let her talk, then played my VYD, not just mine, but neighbors. Clips showed her MO VYing a gnome, screaming at a teen, directing events onto private property. My footage showed the latest wedding incident, her drone, the chaos. Silence fell. A board member stood. "We've had enough. You've used this board as your personal hammer." Another called her out for bullying. Neighbors spoke up for rearranging furniture, photographing trash bins, suggesting paint samples. The room erupted with years of resentment. A vote removed Linda as HOA president, banning her from board roles for 3 years. Unanimous. She tossed her binder and stormed out. Linda's house went up for sale 3 weeks later. Rumor was she moved to a stricter HOA to rule again. Here, she became a cautionary tale. I built a second fence not because I needed it, but because I could.